Hi, and welcome to Dynamics of Persuasion Message Factors. Here's our agenda. We're going to discuss understanding the message structure, evidence, fear appeals, guilt appeals, and language. In understanding the message, what you say and how you say it influences people. Key message factors are the message structure, content, and language. The message structure, does it have one or two sides? One-sided messages present one side of the issue. Two-sided communication offers arguments on behalf of both the persuader's position and the opposition. If you use one-sided messages, you may look like you have something to hide. Refutational two-sided messages gain persuasive advantage by enhancing the credibility of the speaker and providing cogent reasons why opposing arguments are wrong. O'Keefe and Allen conducted a meta-analysis, in other words, a study of other studies, and they concluded that two-sided messages influence attitudes more than one-sided messages, provided one very important condition is met. The message refutes opposition arguments. So what's better, explicit or implicit conclusion drawing? When audience attention wanders, it's best to present a detailed and forceful conclusion. Some people may prefer persuaders not to tell them what to do. O'Keefe found that messages clearly or explicitly articulating an overall conclusion are more persuasive than those that omit a conclusion. Explicit conclusion drawing minimizes chances individuals will become confused, helps people comprehend the overall message, and tends to enhance source evaluations and persuasion. Evidence. Evidence are factual statements originated from a source other than the speaker, objects not created by the speaker, and opinions of persons other than the speaker that are offered in support of the speaker's claims. They can usually consist of factual assertions, quantitative information, eyewitness statements, testimonials, and opinions advanced by credible resources. Evidence changes attitudes. It is especially persuasive when attributed to a highly credible source. It must be processed. The connection to the elaboration likelihood model is when people are highly knowledgeable, evidence will be processed centrally. When people lack motivation, they will rely on those peripheral cues. Evidence operates more as a cue and less as an argument. You can have too much evidence, and that creates confusion. Audience members must recognize that evidence has been offered in support of a proposition and perceive the evidence to be legitimate. The flip side of evidence is that people are more influenced by concrete, emotionally interesting information than by statistical data. Vivid case studies exert particularly strong effects on attitudes. Evidence is not necessarily representative of the larger population. Graphic narratives are generally more compelling than statistics. Vivid case histories evoke stronger mental images. Vivid information can also be so distracting that it interferes with the reception of the message. The best is to use both hard evidence and narrative. A fear appeal is a form of persuasive communication that tries to scare people into changing their attitudes by conjuring up negative consequences that will occur if they do not comply with the message recommendations. Arousing fear does not always produce attitude change. People tend to demonstrate an unrealistic optimism and buy into the illusion of being invulnerable. It's the belief that one is less likely to experience negative life events than others. This is a major barrier to fear appeal success. People harbor these illusions for three reasons. People do not want to admit that life's misfortunes can befall them. They maintain a stereotype of the typical victim of negative events and blithely maintain that they do not fit the mold. People, enjoying the pleasures of risky choices, decide to offload the costs of these pleasures to the more mature adults they will become in the future. The theory of fear appeals is extended by the parallel process model. It emphasizes two parallel processes. A fear-arousing message contains two basic elements, the problem and the solution. With the threat, you're trying to convince that there is a danger, and the severity and susceptibility of information is important. The efficacy information is information about the effectiveness of the recommended action. The two cognitive processes at the core of the theory of fear appeals model are danger control and fear control. Danger control occurs when people perceive that they are capable of averting the threat by undertaking the recommended action. They turn their attention outward, appraise the external danger, and adopt strategies to cope with the problem. Fear control occurs when people face a serious threat but focus inwardly on the fear rather than the problem at hand. They concentrate on ways of containing their fear and keeping it at bay, rather than on developing strategies to ward off the danger at hand. The EPPM is not perfect. It does not provide a precise way to design the optimal fear appeal. Guilt is when an individual notes with remorse that he or she has failed to do what she or he ought to or should do and violates some social custom, ethical or moral principle, or legal regulation. Guilt appeals usually invoke a negative emotional response, one that has affective and cognitive components. It involves ought and should dimensions. Guilt communications are effective only if certain conditions are met. These include self-efficacy and empathy. Guilt appeals can backfire when recipients perceive that the speaker is applying inappropriate pressure to induce them to comply. One primary example of this is charitable organizations depicting deprived children. Language, speed of speech. Speaking quickly can suggest that the communicator is credible, knowledgeable, possesses expertise, and should be seen as more intelligent, confident, and effective. Fast speech may be a facade to disguise a lack of knowledge. Speaking slowly suggests communicator concern, empathy, goodwill, calm, and reassurance. Under low involvement, speech rate can serve as a peripheral cue. Powerless speech is perceived as less confident, less persuasive, and less credible. It may serve as a low credibility cue, and it can be effective when communicators wish to generate goodwill rather than project expertise. Primary components include hesitation forms, hedges, tag questions, and disclaimers. Powerful speech demonstrates language intensity, metaphor, specific and graphic language, and may have strong effects when people do not have well-developed attitudes. Language intensity, framing. The frame is a central organizing idea for making sense of relevant events and suggesting what is at issue. A frame can make certain aspects of an issue salient or promote one way of looking at a problem rather than another. Wording can make a big difference. Consider the difference between death tax rather than estate tax. So here's where we've been. We provided reasons why persuaders should use two-sided arguments. We answered the questions, what type of evidence should be persuasive and when would a fear appeal be persuasive and when might it not be? We described the extended parallel process model and describes some of the components of powerless versus powerful speech.